one more topic that I want to talk about, and it goes back, it kind of fits in with our first topic about knowing what your market is and building a game around it. And that's the idea of weird games, or weird for the sake of weird. For those of you who missed the Indie Game Spotlight stream, for those of you who missed the Spotlight stream, we played a game called Unicorn Dungeon. It is one part point and click adventure game and one part dungeon crawling roguelike. And the roguelike dungeon crawling, you get items. There's no experience, there's no other real thing you do in there, but you explore a procedurally generated dungeon to get the items that you then go back into the point and click side to complete the quests. And I don't think I've ever played a game like that. And it's again one of the beauties of the independent scene when we see developers going for these very weird and outlier concepts that you don't see from the AAA market. Again, I doubt we're going to be seeing a developer or a Capcom trying to make a game like that. But when you have these very weird or very unique titles like this, I think there's always that fine line when it just gets too far out there to the point that you're just not going to make a game that's appealing or something that's going to appeal to everybody. And like we've said before, balancing the contemporary, what people are used to, with your game's own unique marketing point is a major part about being a successful game developer. And here's the other reason why I've been thinking about this. On Adult Swim, we're going to have a very weird tangent here in a second. Adult Swim has a new show on called The Shivering Truth. It's made by the creator of Xavier Renegade Angel, a show that I'm sure everybody watching this is well versed in and knows all about. But both shows are just nightmare fuel for stoners. I think that's the easiest way to describe them. Nothing makes sense. There's no real consistency from episode to episode, or even within each episode. And basically the selling point is that you're going to be watching 15 to 22 minutes of insanity. And that's about it. It makes Too Many Cooks look like an episode of Fuller House. That's how weird it is. And it brings back this point about... Oh, there we go. It brings up this point about at what point is something just too weird for its own good. Again, while while there is such a thing as being too creative, we can of course talk about things that are too routine or too standard. Again, so many AAA developers making first-person shooters or open-world style games. And this is why the independent scene has grown with these original titles. But at what point are you just making things too weird or too niche that is not going to appeal to everybody at all? We've played on some of the games, the Indie Game Spotlight streams, we play games that feature discussions about sexuality or LGBTQ topics and stuff like that. And while those are certainly important issues to discuss, they're not exactly what we see in games that do go on for massive successes. They can still be successful in their own right, just like stuff like The Shivering Truth, and even stuff like Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job. But you can't really put them in the same echelon as stuff like, let's say, the Netflix Marvel series, or a part of those, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And as we've said before, you always have to balance what makes your game original or unique with what's going to be appealing or accepting to a wide audience. One of the biggest examples that we've talked about many times here is UI design. I have played many independent games that feature just horrendous UIs. Use backslash or forward slash key as your primary mode, or having select and start be primary buttons in a platformer. And while that is original, it's not what brings people to these genres. And there's only so far you can go in making something original or weird before you just alienate everybody. Another really great example, again, that bounce would be something like Helix. That's just basically bath salts meets a JRPG kind of game that, despite being so crazy and out there in terms of its visual, story, and the music in it, it still has the underlying system of a JRPG that works. So in that regard, it still has something for people to latch onto. And it's very hard, I feel, for a lot of developers to try and get that balance right, because everybody is trying to make their big name dream game. And a lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to just be so original and so unique that everybody's going to love my game because there's nothing else like it. But then on the flip side, there may be nothing else like it because this idea just doesn't work. Again, you can sit here and dream of your MMO, persistent universe, multiplayer team base, I don't know, tic-tac-toe game all you want. That doesn't mean people are going to be rushing out to play it instead of playing World of Warcraft. And going back to the beginning of our live show, that this is the reason, again, why Blizzard has stayed in business for so long. We've said this many times over. Blizzard does not make original properties. They make refined properties. There you go, exactly. But again, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and even Heroes of the Storm were all based on somebody else's design. They just took that and went a step further, or several steps further, and added in that Blizzard polish. But again, sometimes that's enough. If you take an idea that everybody has seen before and elevate it. But you have to, again, be careful about what that market is you're aiming for. If you're trying to build the next civilization, well, you better hope your game is equal to or better than Civ to begin with, or people aren't going to give it the time of day. And again, this is where that weird games or unique titles get a lot of their problems from. Because you can say, I'm going to build a platformer that nobody's ever seen before, and if it turns out your game is just a crappier version of Mario, why should people play your game and not play Mario? Or have a first-person shooter that looks like a game from 1993, but if it plays worse than a game from 1993, then you're going to be in trouble. Such as like what we've seen lately with Ion Throne, Dusk, I think there's a few other ones, that those games feel like elevated takes on those genres. Like Dusk, for instance. Again, Dusk did not set out to reinvent the wheel. The developer basically said, I want to make the spiritual follow-up to Quake, and Hexen, and Doom, and all those classic games, and that's my line, that's what I'm going to hit. And it succeeded. Again, Dusk is not going to be conquering, is not going to be beating Doom 2016 anytime soon, but that wasn't the point of it. And being able to refine a design to the point that it does feel unique or original is worthy in of itself of being considered a success. With stuff like Heroes of Might and Magic, when you have these long-standing franchises, it becomes harder and harder to keep that going. Because if your game is just saying, we're just like number 3 in the entry, but maybe instead of a blue sky, it's red, why should people play that game? I'm running to that very same issue with Etrian Odyssey. It is a franchise that I love on the 3DS, but I have been just having so much trouble playing through Etrian Odyssey 5. Because it just feels, again, like I'm playing Etrian Odyssey 4. Which is the same as me playing Etrian Odyssey 3, and 2, and 1. And I just hit a shortcut on my computer when I did that motion there. But the point being, yeah, I still do. I gotta play The World Ends With You somehow. But the point is that you always run into that risk when you're dealing with multi-game franchises. That how do you keep people entertained with new stuff without overriding or diminishing what brought those people in the first place. Like when we were talking about Rainbow Six Siege in the previous section, that you can change a game all you want, and some changes are obviously going to be bigger or smaller than others. But I saw on my PSP, although that is collecting dust somewhere. I think I saw it for Valkyria Chronicles 2 or 3 now that I think of it. But when you make changes, you always have to be concerned about who it is that you're affecting, or who's going to be playing your game to begin with. And like we've said, the bar has been raised so high with independent games that you can't just say, I'm going to spend 2 years of my life and I am going to make another Mario platformer, or I'm going to be making another Breakout or another Pac-Man game. Even if you sell that for just $2.99 or $1.99, people want quality. And I do think people are willing to pay a little bit more if it means getting a quality experience. But it's becoming even more muddy because of all the sales going on. I mean, these days, thanks to game sales, do you spend $15 on an independent game? Or do you spend $20 on a AAA game that's on sale? In fact, going back to what we were saying with Dragon Ball FighterZ, now I'm really curious. What is it on sale for? It's down to $23 right now. Yep, or you get it for free. I mean, that is really pushing me right now if I want to buy that. But again, fighting games and I don't go well together. But fighting game genre is another great example of this. There are so many hidden or under the layer rules and systems. Oh, nice. It's so many underlying rules and systems to fighting games that as a developer, you need to understand if you want to make a game that appeals to fighting game fans. And it's also why we see a lot of fighting game people either develop their own game or get called in as an advisor on a new fighting game. There was a smaller fighting game that came out earlier this year whose name completely escapes me. Something, Fighting Layer EX, something like that. That just came out. I don't know if it's still even going strong. Let's see. But, again, you always have to... yeah, me too, Draken. I know, let's all buy a Dragon Ball FighterZ and see if we can all learn it and play at the tournament level. Just as there are no more tournaments. We did play Skullgirls on stream a few weeks ago. You took a StarCraft to the soul. That's nice. And Darkstalkers, yep. Not to be confused with Darksiders, as I have done many a time. But again, with each one of these genres, there's that fine line you always have to walk as a developer in terms of how weird or original I make it versus how much do I adhere to standardized practices. And like I always say, the UI is one area that you never want to try and innovate on. Because it's kind of akin to you saying, I'm going to build the next great car, and I'm going to place a steering wheel in the back seat. Because I'm going to be a risk taker and change things up like that. Standardized elements are more for the consumer than they are as being forced on by the developer. They are things that the consumer already knows about, and thereby it saves you a step on explaining or trying to figure things out. Why should I build, again, a car with steering wheels in the back seat, a mirror on the floor, when I can follow what people have gotten used to for over 67 years now, and they've become accustomed to it? And again, you can innovate and do things differently in areas that need that kind of work. Again, going back to Blizzard, they know that if they're building, again, a team-based FPS, that they're not going to try and, completely think outside the box when it comes to the combat. They can follow what other people have done and just add that little extra special element to it that makes it uniquely Blizzard. The same goes for the fighting game discussions, as we've talked about. That you don't need to make a fighting game that features, I don't know, a dance pad functionality, because people know about those button combinations. But again, though, it still stands to reason that there could be a market for a very streamlined fighting game. And arguably, as we all know, there is, because Smash Brothers has kind of filled that niche. And again, with Smash Brothers, that was Nintendo basically saying, let's do something different. And it worked. Yet, there is a Star Wars dancing game. It's a Star Wars dancing / karaoke game. That is a thing, folks, for everybody watching this right now. We're not making that one up. Although we could probably have a contest about which weird section or what weird game we describe is real and which one is not. And Han Solo, and that was during they had him singing that I Got the Moves Like Jagger song. I'm Spartacus. But again, when it comes to like original content, this is a perfect moment of serendipity. I just saw a mention of Middle-earth Shadow of War. That in that case, the original Shadow of Mordor, one of the things that became very popular was them adopting the Nemesis system. And that was something nobody ever saw in a third-person open-world style game. And that was an area where developers innovated on, and it paid off. Now, of course, they also got flack for, use stealth to sneak up and kiss your wife. And that system of the Nemesis, not the wife kissing, was adopted by Firaxis with XCOM 2 and War of the Chosen. So you never know where innovation will work. But you, again, still have to base a foundation on something that people are accustomed to. Arguably, don't tell me that. But arguably, innovation is not always a big seller. Again, The World Ends With You may be my favorite game. It's one of the games listed in my book, shameless plug, 20 Essential Games to Study. But that game did not make as much. Yeah, they did. And of course, that press F to pay respects was also very popular. I'm curious about something here. Oh, my excerpt on 20 Essential Games is now up on VentureBeat. Nice. There we go. There's that marketing push we need. But, yeah, like we're saying, originality doesn't... It only sells games to a point, I feel. And again, you need to have that foundation for somebody to attach to, or they're not going to enjoy the originality. And this is why good tutorial and good UI design are essential, because if your game's going to be all weird and different, if you can explain to them in a way that they'll understand it, that is much more appealing than being able to just say, here's this crazy mix of games. Again, your tic-tac-toe roguelike dungeon crawling dwarf fortress simulator. Go nuts. And we're almost at an hour and a half and my voice is still here. There we go. That's a nice preview there about my book. DF is another level. Yep. And again, so many people have been trying to copy Dwarf Fortress. Again, what was that? Nomeria, Clockwork Empire, Stonehearth, and I think I've lost count the number of games that have tried to be a Dwarf Fortress like. And again, it goes back to the main point. If no matter how original or weird or wacky your game is, if you're just copying somebody else's design, why should they play your game instead of that one? If there are 50,000 Match 3 clones on mobile, why should somebody play yours and not play Candy Crush? Or why should they not play Farmville? or so on and so forth. And this actually goes back to, well, somewhat of what we were on top about, talking about Darksiders. And hold on one second, someone just kind of messed up there. There we go. Sorry about that. I think I sort of got a little stuttery. But with the whole Darksiders formula, that they've ran into a lot of trouble with trying to, again, copy other developers while still presenting an original design. But like with the whole Souls-like thing, if you're going to call your game a Souls-like, there are some just unavoidable elements you need in your game. You don't call your game a Souls-like and then have combat like Devil May Cry or God of War, because those two systems just don't gel well in terms of the combat. And if you're not careful, it's just going to upset a lot of people, especially if you say your game is like X and you're just not adhering to that formula. Uh-oh. My computer seems to be slowing down a little bit. Hopefully things aren't getting stuttery at all. I think Chrome is causing me some trouble here. Yeah. Give me 1 second. In fact, I think this may be a good time to wrap it up. Yeah, Chrome. Oh, Google Chrome. It's a resource killer here. I can't even read the chat right now. Alright. I think I'll wrap it up here then, instead of trying to fight with Google. Wait, I think it's trying to get back. I mean, I have like 15 different windows open on Google Chrome, and they don't like that all that much. Get Microsoft Edge. But, let me see here. How are we doing? Well, at least I'm not stuttering. That's good. Alright. But, let's begin to wrap things up, because we're almost hitting an hour and a half. And I do have to say my voice for our classic game night later tonight. So, with that said, when it comes to like weird for the sake of being weird, while you can certainly do that, you still need to approach things from an accessibility standpoint. There has to be something for the consumer to latch onto that they are familiar with, or you're just not going to attract people to it. Even games like Renowned Explorers ran into trouble with being just so weird and original with its design that a lot of people didn't know what they were going to get at. I don't know yet, Mojo. I have to think about it. I'll have to turn to the SNES list. But, as a developer, again, you have to understand all aspects of your game, especially the accessibility and UI, because those are going to be where I think people are going to attach themselves the most to your title. If your game is presented very easily and you have sufficient tutorial messages and stuff like that, people are going to be able to follow that. Yeah, Mike, we did that last night. That was the Indie Game Spotlight stream. I'll be cutting those up for probably this week for people to watch. But with that said, I am going to wrap it up for this week and go rest my voice. So, thank you for everybody watching this live or recorded. If you're enjoying this recorded right now and would like to watch this ad-free and uncut, check out patreon.com/GWBycer. I don't know if you hear the phone ringing in the background. That's also a good sign to wrap it up as well. But, with that said, check out our Discord and all that great stuff linked down below. I will see everybody later. Exactly, chow, eat more waffles, especially Belgian waffles. And have a great night, and come back for daily discussions on game design. Until next time, take care.